Bruce Allan is a survivor of the residential school system, as is his father and sister and grandmother and some aunts and uncles as well. He is now a Resolution Health Support Worker at the Indian Residential Schools Survivors Society. He joins me now from Prince George. Mr. Allan, good of you to take the time to speak with me today. We have the federal government saying it's now ready to roll out some $27 million it budgeted 2 years ago to help Indigenous communities conduct gravesite searches at residential school sites. What's your reaction to that funding announcement and the fact it's taken 2 years to make it available?
Well, I think if that's money for all of the residential schools across Canada, that's quite a small amount, I would say. British Columbia alone had 30 residential schools in operation throughout its history, and so 27 million would cover BC, and I'm not too sure if you divide it up by the rest of the provinces. I still think that's probably a small amount.
Yeah, the government says, the minister says that that the federal government will be there every step of the way, but I guess people will want to see exactly what that means when it comes to actually following through. The government points out, the minister pointed out today, that it took 2 years to get ready to roll out this money, in some measure to understand exactly what Indigenous communities wanted the money for and what services and expertise the federal government would help fund with that money, that the process had to be led by the communities. Help us understand why it is so crucial that Indigenous communities lead these searches for these lost children.
I think, first of all, as survivors of residential schools, a lot of the survivors know, the remaining survivors know, because of witnessing events that happened at residential schools, they would know the sites where they may have witnessed children being buried or other things such as furnaces and water and all of that sort of thing. So it'll take a lot of investigation to find some of these bodies, because it will come from survivors, and survivors usually are a little bit leery about talking to just anybody, and it does bring up a lot of grief and loss, and so a lot of that has been buried over the years. But remaining survivors who are witnesses have a lot of the information. So First Nations would have that information a lot easier than if an outside group came in to investigate.
Okay. You've witnessed the reaction from across Canada in the past few days, the shock and the sadness from every corner of this country. What do you think of that reaction?
I think it's well-founded. I'm a father and I'm a grandfather. And so I do have a grandson, 3 years old. And with the Kamloops discovery of a 3-year-old, that really hits home for me, because I can't imagine my grandson being taken right now. I do have 5 boys, and any one of them being taken, that would have been devastating. And I can imagine that would extend to my father and his siblings being taken to Lee Jack, and then my father attending the Kamloops Residential School back in 1949 to 1954 when he graduated. So it does hit home for a lot of survivors and intergenerational survivors.
And when you look beyond the Indigenous community, a lot of Canadians think of residential schools as a part of our past, but that is certainly not the case for survivors. It's part of your everyday life, isn't it?
Yes, especially, it comes back every day. Any bad memories from residential schools will come back every day. And this event has really triggered a lot of survivors, and Sometimes it's good. I attended a gathering at the residential school site that I attended, and I saw a few people that I went to school with, and one in particular, I went to say hi to him, see how he was doing, and he was very emotional. And the reason was that it was the first time for him coming back to the school site since he left as a child.
The tragedy in Kamloops has also renewed the calls across the country now to remove the statues and rename buildings that have been dedicated to the architects of the residential school system. What are your thoughts on that?
I hear two sides from survivors. They say keep it in, so we need to, use it as opportunities to teach. I think Duncan Campbell Scott was a huge figure in the residential school system, and Canadians need to learn more about what his role was in the residential schools. For Lee Jack, in 1937, there was 4 boys who froze to death who were running away from the residential school, and it was investigated, but really nothing came of it. D.C. Scott simply said that we expect some deaths in the schools, and we're going to carry on. So, the statues, there's two sides to that. Some of them say remove them.
All right. Mr. Allan, thanks so much for your time tonight, and it was good to talk to you, and we'll talk again, I hope.
Okay, thank you very much.